Hey guys, how's it going? Today I'm going to be featuring the Mogami, and something I am going to be going over since I'm asked very often in my videos in the comments is how to track your shells and torpedoes when you launch them. So we're going to go over to settings, and if you look at controller preset, I have preset 1 selected, and over on the right the A button is the tracking camera, and that is basically how you track torpedoes or shells that's fired. And you can also find that same option in controller preset 2. However, I find controller preset 1 to fit basically what I want the buttons for myself to be. Obviously, if you prefer preset 2, go right ahead, but preset 1 works the best for me. And here, launching torpedoes, I just simply press the A button, and I think on PlayStation that would be the X button. Whenever you use the tracking camera, you're actually able to look around a bit and see the surroundings of either your torpedoes or shells. And sometimes it can actually be really useful when trying to figure out the basically what the enemy is doing when they're behind an island. Sometimes I'll just go ahead and launch shells pretty much far over the island, and then I'll just use the tracking camera to look down to see where the enemy ship is looking, where he is moving, if he's like reversing or going forward. It's just some small things that you can do with this tracking camera to obtain more information to basically help yourself out. The tracking camera will follow the last fired ordnance. So like you saw at the beginning, I decided to fire the torpedoes into the cap since they could reach. And then I started farming this Yamato. And after looking at the torpedoes and then firing, my tracking camera followed the shells. And if I were to go to the tracking camera before firing again and my torpedoes were still in the water, then you could have the tracking camera go back to the torpedoes. The general rule of thumb is it will basically follow the last ordnance that is fired. I hope you guys found this useful and can use the tracking camera and I guess have a fun with it and maybe even have some tactical use with it. But yeah, it's just a setting, one of the controller preset settings, and you can find it in controller preset 1 and 2. Unfortunately, the other presets don't have the tracking camera, and I believe controller presets 1 and 2 force you to use the left stick as your throttle, your acceleration and reverse. And I do know that some people do prefer to use the buttons, the A and B button, or PlayStation is X and circle, I believe. So if you're not comfortable with using the sticks, then obviously you can do whatever you want, but unfortunately, like I said, there isn't any presets that have the tracking camera with using the buttons for your acceleration. I don't think this is an option on mobile currently, at least from who I've talked to, the shell tracking camera doesn't exist. I'm not 100% sure since I am not testing the mobile version in its beta right now, but I'm sure those of you who are can check and probably leave the answer down in the comments. But as far as I know, it doesn't exist. Maybe at some point they will add it to the mobile version. We can always hope. But I do hope you guys found this information useful and maybe would like to try out using the preset 1 or 2 and seeing how you like it with the addition of the tracking camera. Obviously, it will take some time to learn if you've been using preset 5, which I think is the standard preset that you start out with. So if you've been using that the whole time, it will take some getting used to using the sticks and all the different buttons that do different things. Moving on, as of right now when I'm recording this, the August update will come out next week, and I guess I kind of wanted to discuss the things that we know are coming right now. And as far as we know, Tier 8 is coming, and they've just recently announced the next campaign ship, which is the Republique. And for those of you that don't know, that is the Tier 10 French battleship that exists currently on PC in the tech tree. And instead of adding it as a bureau ship and a legendary tier ship, they've moved it to Tier 8, which I'm not entirely sure what they are going for. Maybe they will add the Alsace as the Tier 8 tech tree battleship, and then they'll add the Bourgogne as the legendary tier battleship, since that is one of the more popular battleships that exist on PC, and since there actually isn't really anything else at Tier 10 for the French Navy, what I am assuming they're trying to do is turn the Republique into somewhat a ship like the Champagne, where it has slightly bigger guns than the tech tree counterpart, and it has a longer range flanker type of playstyle. But from what we know, the Republique has 431mm guns, which means that it can overmatch 30mm of armor, which in this case it's really only one cruiser, and that is the Edinburgh. The Azuma also has a 30mm deck, as well as the Siegfried. So there is some cruisers that you will definitely be able to smash a little more in the Republique, but at the same time, there still isn't as many 30mm cruisers that exist. Most of the cruisers are 27, and then at legendary tier 32mm. So really, using the Republique I don't think will make that much of a difference. One of the gimmicks that the Republique has is that the reload was relatively quick on PC. I think the reload was around 22 seconds. And with those large guns, the gimmick of French battleships is that it has pretty insane penetration. I'm pretty sure you can Citadel a Yamato at max range through its armor belt, which typically battleships will shatter, but I'm pretty sure the Republique will be able to pen that. I think it will definitely be one of the favorites for those players that want to snipe from the back, simply because the guns were also gimmicked to be really accurate and have that insane pen at range. Aside from the Republique as the campaign ship, the Tier 8 ships that are being added, there are 12 of them. It is the Maine, the Buffalo, Allen M. Sumner, the Izumo, Ibuki, Yugamo, Sovietsky Soyuz, Dmitry Donskoy, and the Delny. And finally, the last nation is the Germans, which is the Rune Z46 and Friedrich der Grosse. Currently, I have about 250 million credits, and I can only really get about 8 of them, and that's just buying them, not including the purchases like the mods and upgrades. The base cost for the ships is 25 million, and I'm assuming the cost for the upgrades and fully equipping your ship will be closer to 30 million. The first ships that I plan to get are probably going to be all 4 of the battleships. I am very excited for the Friedrich der Grosse and the Sovietsky Soyuz, 2 battleships that are typically played very aggressively. And then you have the 2 battleships that are more suited for long range in the Maine and the Izumo. Not quite my cup of tea, but I definitely will find a way to play those aggressively, especially using Izumo with possibly Arthas the Code and getting that Citadel damage somewhere up to like 20,000 or something with his special skills. Obviously that's only 4 ships, so I have 4 more to choose from. Of the remaining 8 ships, I will probably be getting the Allen M. Sumner and the Buffalo, as well as the Dmitry Donskoy and the Delny or Z46. I think those ships are probably going to be more interesting than the others like the Ibuki. Not really a fan of the long-range HE spam cruiser. The Yugamo, again, not really a fan of torpedo boats. And then we have the Rune, which has a very weird turret layout. It has two turrets in the back and one in the front, so it's definitely more of a ship that's catered towards kiting away. Kind of like the Nuremberg, but it is the precursor to the Hindenburg, which is another ship that I am waiting for and I'm pretty excited for. And hopefully that is a cruiser that will be added soon, since we really only have one heavy cruiser in the Des Moines, and since it's the only heavy cruiser, it seems like it is outperforming the other existing cruisers with its DPM, which it's supposed to, but at the same time, we have nothing else to compare it to, so obviously it's going to stand out against the other existing legendary tier cruisers. The final thing I would like to discuss is the August-September window, which is about the time when World of Warships Legend was fully released. Obviously, a few months ago we had the 3-year birthday, but that was from the early access period when it launched back in May of 2019, I believe, and then the full release was in August, which was around the time the German battleships came out. And every year since then, in August, there have been events and also bring back a lot of the content that was previously released. So I'm curious to see what they have in store for us. I do remember a bureau project that basically gave you crates from the past year, and if there were, say, tech trees that were released, you were able to obtain maybe one or two of them per segment. And also, they would have the first win bonuses that are higher than normal, maybe 3 times. I know the 5 times bonus was only around for basically that winter period, like Christmas and New Year's. But even with this 3 times first win bonus modifier, you'll definitely be able to grind a whole lot of global XP and commander XP if you're using your boosters. One thing I forgot to mention about Tier 8 is that the Tier 7 will basically have a +2 matchmaking, so it will still be possible for you to face legendary ships in your Tier 7 ships. At first, when Tier 8 was announced, I thought legendary tier was gonna get a short break from basically facing carriers, especially because usually it's just +1 or -1 matchmaking, and since carriers skip tiers, legendary tier doesn't have legendary carriers yet. So now what we can basically expect is, like they said, it will probably take about one update for a bunch of players to get tier 8 ships and then populate the tier so that it can go back to normal +1 -1 matchmaking. And then I'm sure some point after that, they will probably be forced to add carriers at legendary tier, which could be good and also could be bad at the same time, since we all know the carriers that exist on PC, like the FDR and the Nakimov. But here I am with tier 7 being my favorite. I probably won't have to deal with those at all, and I'll just be dealing with carriers like Saipan, which is still a bit unfortunate, but still not as bad. And I also won't have to deal with Conquerors and Yamatos just absolutely smashing my Massachusetts, which is probably my favorite part of Tier 8 being added. Although, on PC, the Tier 9 premium ship, the Musashi, which is basically a Yamato, exists, and since Tier 8 is basically their Tier 9, I'm sure at some point they will also add that. Hopefully not. Hopefully they add it as a legendary tier premium or something. But yeah, that's all I got for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Do leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more. Leave a comment down below for any ships you want to see in the future. But until next time, aloha.